Ms. Payne, and today we are going to do some area model division to help us understand how to do the standard algorithm for division. So here we have 672 divided by 3. And the first thing I do for my area model division is I draw my box. And then I take my divisor, which is the 3, and I'm going to place that on the side of the box. After I place my divisor on the side, I'm going to split my box into 3 different parts. And the reason I'm doing 3 different parts is because my dividend is made up of 3 digits. I then take my dividend and place it inside at the top of the first box. So now I'm able to get started. And the first thing I do is I ask myself, 3 times what is going to give me 672? But 672 is a large number, so you might not know the factor of 3, what 3 times that factor will be to get you 672. So we can break this down. We can break this down by underlining the first digit. And then I can ask myself, 3 times what is going to give me 6? Well, 3 times 2, okay? And then notice that although we've broken this down, this number is still 672. So we have 2 digits.
389 has arrived. But 389 has arrived. Spencer Chanel, if you're in the office building, please come to the office. 389 has arrived. 389. Spencer Chanel, if you're in the building, please come to the office.
Sorry guys, it's dismissal. So notice that I have 2 digits that are left over that I did not underline. So I'm going to add 2 zeros, okay? So 3 times 200 is, well, if 3 times 2 is 6, then 3 times 200 is 600. So I know some of you guys are going to want to place this number here, this 200, inside the box, but we have to subtract out the product of 3 times 200. So if you see that the number you have up top here and that you're subtracting out is the same, you've made a mistake. So 672 minus 600 is 72. Let me put the subtraction symbol. That's a subtraction symbol. It didn't work out, but anywho. So now that I have the answer to my subtraction problem, I'm going to take the difference, and the difference is the answer to a subtraction problem, and bring it to the top of the next box. Anytime I have a number at the top of a new box, I ask myself, 3 times what is going to give me 72? Well, 72 might be large for some people, so let's go ahead and break this down. 3 times what is going to give me 7, or close to 7, okay, but not over 7. Well, 3 times 1 is 3. That's okay. 3 times 2 is 6. And if I do 3 times 3, that's 9. That's too high. So I have to go with 3 times 2. And notice I have 1 digit that I did not underline, so I'm going to go ahead and put a 0, okay? And now I have to subtract, but I'm not going to subtract this factor up here. I'm going to multiply, because factors multiply to give you products. So 3 times 20 is, well, 3 times 2 is 6, so 3 times 20 is 60. So I'm going to subtract out 60, okay, and that gives me 12. Okay, and when I get my difference, what do I do with it? I bring it to the top of the next box. So I'm going to slide this to the top of the next box. Okay, and then when I have a number at the top of a new box, what do you ask yourself? You ask yourself 3 times what is going to give you 12? Well, 3 times 4. So I put that factor here and I subtract out the product. And notice I'm saying the product. I'm not subtracting out this factor. I'm going to subtract out the product. So 3 times 4 is 12. So I'm going to subtract out 12. All right.
That's 257 has arrived. That's 257 has arrived. Last call for 389. That's 257 has arrived.
All right, and I end up with 0. Okay, so where's my answer? My answer is right up here, and I add it together. Okay, so that's 224. Okay, so now let's do it using the standard algorithm. Okay, so here is my standard algorithm. Okay, and I want you to ask yourself, how is the standard algorithm similar to the area model? Well, our divisors are both on the side. Our dividends are both inside of the house, some people like to call it, or they're both inside at the top of a box, okay? So when you do your area model, you're going to go through the same steps, but it's just going to look a little bit different. So what's the first thing you do with the area model? Well, you ask yourself, 3 times what is going to give me 672? But that number's large, so we can break it down. And what do we do to break it down? We underline the first digit. So now I can ask myself, 3 times what is going to give me 6? Well, 3 times 2. And where did I place that 2 in my area model? I placed it right on top. So I'm going to place this 2 right on top. But notice I'm not going to expand it. Notice this 2 is in the hundreds place, okay? I was going to put an H there, but it's not allowing me to. But know that this 2 is in the hundreds place, okay? Now ask yourself, in the area model, after you figured out what you had to multiply, what did you do? You multiplied and subtracted that product. You're going to do the same thing. 3 times 2 is 6. So I'm going to subtract out 6. And notice that my 6 is still in the hundreds place, okay? And I put my subtraction line right with the digits that I'm working with. I'm not going to go all the way out. I'm just going to stick to what I'm working with in the hundreds place. So 6 minus 6 is 0, okay? In our area model, when we got the answer to our subtraction problem, the difference, we brought it to the top of the next box. However, here, we cannot bring this 0 to the top of the next box. There's no next box. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring down this 7, okay? And when I bring down the 7, I draw an arrow, and I don't let my arrow extend past the subtraction line, and I write my 7 right there. And then when you notice that this subtraction line and this arrow meet, think about this number under here as being at the top of a new box. And what do you ask yourself when a number is at the top of a new box? You ask yourself, what is 3 times what is going to give me close to 7, okay? Well, 3 times 2. And notice I'm placing this 2 right in the tens place. And you guys had 20 here. And 2 tens is the same as 20, okay? So after I figured out what I had to multiply in my area model.
198 has arrived. That's 198 has arrived.
134 is here.
That's 134 has arrived. That's 199 has arrived. All buses have arrived. All buses have arrived.
Once I've notice that I've placed my 2 in the tens place, and notice that the number that you've placed here is 2 tens, which is the same as 20. And once I've placed my I've figured out my factor that I'm multiplying, what do? I multiply and then subtract. So 3 times 2 is 6. I'm going to subtract out 6. Now, if you see that you are placing a 2 here, or one of your subtraction, or the number that's right on top, you made a mistake. You have to multiply first. 3 times 2 is 6. I'm going to subtract out 6. So now I'm left with a difference of 1. Okay, and the difference is the answer to a subtraction problem. So usually, what do we do with our difference? We usually bring it to the top of the next box, but we cannot bring it to the top of the next box here. So instead, we're going to draw an arrow to bring down the next digit. Okay, so I'm bringing down my 2. But notice our subtraction line and this arrow meet. And what did I tell you guys to think about when you see the subtraction line and the arrow meet? We're going to think about it as this number being at the top of a new box. And when you have a number at the top of a new box, what do you ask yourself? You ask yourself, 3 times what is going to give me 12? Well, 3 times 4. And notice I'm putting this 4 right in the ones place, okay? 4 ones, 4 in the ones place is the same. So now, after I figured out my factor that I need to use to get me close to 12, I'm going to multiply, well, 3 times 4 is 12, and I have to subtract that. So I'm going to subtract that. And I get 0. Okay? So my answer is right here at the top, just like you saw in your area model. However, this is in standard form. It's not in expanded form. Okay, so I hope that helps. Leave me comments if you have questions or if you're confused, and I will see you guys on Tuesday.